Hey, good morning, everyone. It is April 6, 2021, and our cup of caring guest today is Dave Rosenthal. Hey, Dave, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, thank you.
Dave is a financial advisor with Rosenthal and Associates, and he's out of Serrano Park, Maryland, but he's also an amazing supporter of the ARC. He's been how many different positions in our board? President?
Many different positions, president, vice president, treasurer, committee members, made the rounds.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you for being here today and telling us about a little bit about financial planning. So tell us a teeny bit about yourself and what got you involved in this.
Great question. Thank you. I grew up with a sister with intellectual disability. We're 22 months apart, so we grew up together. And as I started my practice 27 years ago, I saw the struggles my parents had in finding the right resources. And that prompted me to dedicate myself to learning about the resources, financial and estate planning for families with children with disabilities. And it's really been a path of learning over that time.
Absolutely. It's very complex, but it's an important lesson for parents to know. So what would you say that prompted you to really start reinforcing that with parents about the importance of financial planning?
Well, if I'll go to it's a great question. I'll steal a quote from Benjamin Franklin. He said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail.
Oh, yeah.
And no matter who you are, you need a plan. No matter what your resources are, you need a plan. And I think that quote encapsulates the real why behind it.
Because mom and dad aren't going to be around forever as much as we'd like them to, right? So we need to make sure.
Unless you have a magic pill, that's the case.
Right. And we've seen it. I mean, you and I have both experienced personal tragedies where mom and dad or mom or one of the caregivers, could be grandma, is no longer able to care for the adult child, really is what we're talking about. And then the adult child is thrown into a very unfamiliar world. And it may or may not be the lifestyle they're used to if there's no financial planning. No setup involved, right? Yes. So that's very overwhelming, right? So what's the number one step? Like when I say, okay, I don't even know where to begin, Dave, I'm embarrassed to even talk about this. You know, my daughter's 50 and I'm 70 and I haven't done a thing. What do I do first?
Well, first, it's always a good time to start. It's never too late. And you should never feel uncomfortable about talking about these issues with a professional. And yes, I understand the feeling of overwhelm. It can be debilitating and paralyze you. Step one might be to request a consultation to see if we're able to add value. If nothing else, it gives you perspective over a broad set of issues and start creating your own personal roadmap of how to proceed.
Mm-hmm. And it seems too, like there may be parents out there that not only have they not planned for their child, but maybe they haven't planned for their own. Maybe they got to retire and downsize and stuff. So you help people with that as well, correct?
Absolutely. And my analogy is pre-COVID, when we all would get on an airplane and you hear their spiel and the yellow mask would drop down, what would they say? If you're traveling with a minor or child, put your own mask on first, then your child. Well, in many ways, financial planning is the same way. You need to address your own issues. They don't go away. But they're become complex or complicated with the nature of planning for two lives. So it's really important to start and address your own issues.
Right. And one of the questions I get is, I'm so busy. Like, I don't have time for this. How long is this going to take me, Dave? How long is it going to take me to plan and get this down?
Well, that depends. It really depends on how quickly you want to move things along. I think one of the greatest value we add to our client relationships is accountability. We're very process oriented. Here, step one, do this. Okay, we've done this. Step two, do this. And really, financial plan is a very extended project plan, a lifelong project plan, which changes over time. And our services are designed to give advice over time, because we know people's lives change dramatically. So we have the tools and the systems, no matter how busy you are, to take an hour out of your time for virtual meeting and begin discussing it. And if we feel we can add value, it's an okay, next step is this. Do this. We ask for a commitment of a date. And then that's how we work on an ongoing basis. Put it into very small bite-sized pieces so you don't become overwhelmed by the process.
Oh, that's really good. And do you incorporate the person that they are supporting, their loved one, into the process?
That depends on the family and the individual. I believe there's a place for that, but as we talk about financial issues, there's a confidentiality aspect.
Sure.
So we want to be sure that the parents are okay discussing that in front of their child or children.
Sure.
I wouldn't suggest it initially, but I'm a strong fan of family meetings because the biggest issues arise with estate planning with a lack of communication. So when communicated properly and wishes, and you want to leave a legacy of love, not a legacy of conflict.
Oh, wow. That's really good. So you talk, on their level or with the need to know basis, what they need to know about what could happen.
It's on a need to know. It depends on the individual, their ability to understand. And depending on that, we modify our financial plan and approach we take.
Now, do you work with things? Can you explain things like, I know you do trust and Maryland Able accounts, or all those things? What are some of the things you talk about?
So most family members come to me with the first comment is, I need a special needs trust.
Yeah.
And I like to back it up a few steps before that, because a special needs trust is one of the tools in the toolbox. So as we look at your situation, we have to understand what are other family members. And I have relationships with estate planning attorneys who know the issues that you deal with day out, day in and day out, CPAs, also that know the tax implications.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an attorney, I don't draft documents, but I have a really good understanding of the strategies and how to step clients through that discussion to make decisions. In building a financial plan, by the time you come to see an estate attorney, a lot of those things are already discussed and laid out, and it makes that estate planning process much easier.
Of course, yeah. Now, what kind of resources do you have? I know you said call you and do maybe a kind of just an initial conversation about whether you would be a good fit for the families and the support they need. But are there worksheets or anything that they can fill out, in advance to sort of figure out where they are? How much do I have to do? Where am I in this process?
Well, that's a great question. I get it an awful lot. We can provide worksheets ahead, but I think the value in that initial discussion is for us to get to know each other.
Yeah.
The numbers are a way of measuring things along the way. But until we understand your set of values, what you want to accomplish, what your concerns are, the numbers don't come to play or really mean anything. Mm-hmm. So I'm more focused on how we do things in talking and discussing up front before we figure out what do you got and where it goes.
Yeah.
Because that also gives us a good understanding if we have a basis for working together, and are we in alignment in each of our respective values. And then we can lay out a path of gathering that information. So if you have a busy parent or set of parents, maybe they have time for that initial discussion, but don't have time to prepare a worksheet.
Yeah, of course.
So I always put the details aside. If out of that meeting we see that we can't add value, we'll give some homework. Go do these items, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Come back to us when you're ready and you've accomplished those things. So even though we may not be able to provide them direct services, we always want to provide them direction to put them on the right path.
That's interesting because, you are a big supporter of the ARC, and our admissions process is very much the same. People go, well, where's my application? And Kendall is always like, we don't have an application. It's a conversation about whether what the ARC is offering is going to be what your child needs. And she has that conversation a lot. And sometimes we're the perfect decision, and sometimes we may or may not be, and we do the same thing. We offer other solutions. So that's awesome that you do it that way. That's very much in line with our philosophy.
And it's not unusual. I spent so many years on the board of the ARC, given our alignment of how we think about these things.
I can hear the similar feeling there about what's good and what's right. So that's wonderful. So any other thing you want to add to the conversation about how parents would contact you or first steps?
Well, always as a backdrop, I've spent 18 years on the board of the ARC. I am a big supporter, but I don't have all the answers. I think the important thing is to recognize in a professional that they know when they don't know and will pursue answers elsewhere. I think this is an ideal situation where that could happen, is I don't have all the answers, but I always try to direct them to the right place. For contact info, 3 very simple points. First, my website, davidarosenthal.com.
Okay.
My email address, david.a.rosenthal@ampf.com.
Okay.
Last, want a phone number? I don't know with teams in the world we live in if anybody picks up a phone anymore, but it's 410-975-9773. A virtual receptionist will answer and direct you to the right place.
Oh, wonderful.
So whether you want to schedule an appointment, talk with me or one of my team members, it's a very easy way to get directed to the proper place. And can always call you and ask for my contact info.
Absolutely. And we'll put that in our newsletter. The Family Connector goes out on the 10th of every month. So you have to take notes if you're watching the video. It'll be in the Family Connector. And if you don't get the Family Connector, they better sign up on our website, right? So I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time today, Dave. Anytime you want to reach out, if there's a development or anything you want to share with our families, I'd love to have you back.
That's great. Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your support of the ARC. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.